Hello, everyone.
I'm Kayla.
And I'm Silas, and this is The Adventures of Kayla and Silas, a podcast about everything travel. Each week we cover travel topics that we find interesting and that we hope you will too. Kayla and I are currently traveling in Mexico, but we want to take a break from talking about Mexico and Central America and instead talk about a little place called New Zealand. But we aren't experts on the topic, so we wanted to bring in two experts on New Zealand. They have a background in studying abroad there. So we figured that is as close to expert as we're probably going to get on the podcast today.
I mean, we probably could have invited someone from New Zealand.
Oh, gosh, that's a great idea. Should we cancel?
I don't think so, because I think they have some stories they want to share.
It's too late. We're here.
So without further ado, Jordan and Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves. Introduce yourselves and tell us about how you chose to get to New Zealand, so that can give us a little bit of a background as we move forward to ask a few more questions about your experience.
So Rachel and I are roommates at Iowa State University, and we actually both studied abroad at the same university, and that's how we became roommates, is because we met each other in New Zealand. Despite not knowing each other at Iowa State, we met in New Zealand just because we were going to the same university. I'm a political science major, but I wanted to do film, and I love film. And so my favorite movies are the Lord of the Rings movies. That's my favorite thing in the entire world. I didn't know where I wanted to study abroad, and so I was like, hey, I like Lord of the Rings, and New Zealand seemed pretty cool. I didn't really know a whole lot about New Zealand until I went there, but it's really cool.
See, I actually had my heart dead set on going to Australia first, and then went to the study abroad fair, and one kid convinced my friend and I to go to New Zealand. I actually planned a New Zealand trip a year before Jordan and I went, but some things happened, and I had to push it back a year, and then that's actually how we got to meet, was because plans got changed, and then we got to go to Massey together, which was really exciting. Mm-hmm. And I study animal ecology and anthropology, so it's probably the top place that everyone in my major goes to. So really nice for exploring.
That's super cool. I know you said the name, but can you say it again, the university that you chose, and kind of why you chose? Oh, yep, here we have it right on your shirt for those who are watching. Perfect. Massey.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just like the locals. I guess, why did you choose this university over the other universities that are available in New Zealand?
So for me personally, it was either Massey University or Otago University. And Otago was in the South Island, which some people say can be a little bit maybe more prettier or more adventure bound. But I liked that Massey had a very similar feel to Iowa State. Everything was close on campus. They even have a lake with 2 black swans on it.
Cool.
Otago, it was adorable, and that's why I really liked it. And Otago is more of a city university, and I really didn't like that feel. So,
when I chose schools, I chose Massey because pretty much the same reason, as I wanted a campus that was readily available to hiking places too, and not that Otago wasn't, but it's just more of a city feel, and they had the most classes that were applicable to my major. I knew a bunch of kids that had went specifically to Palmerston North, which is the Massey campus we studied on, because there's 3 different campuses. There's one in Auckland, there's one in Wellington, and then there's Palmerston North, and they're all in really big cities, and it's a bit more expensive too. So I chose it because I felt like it was probably the best just for my classes and just for meeting people too, because it's more consolidated. So that's why I chose Massey in the middle of New Zealand. Yeah.
That's super awesome. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because you started a sentence.
So I guess you went there, you took classes, you were doing your study abroad thing. Kayla and I both studied abroad. We kind of have an idea of what that is like, but neither of us were in that region of the world. And as a study abroad student, one of the things that you usually get really excited about is weekend trips and going places and exploring. Where were some of the places that did you hike the path to Mordor? Was that something you got to do? And what were your weekend trips and some of your favorites?
Oh goodness. We went somewhere every weekend because New Zealand, there's places to hike literally everywhere. I mean, the hike to class was even a thing. Like the campus was just amazing. I mean, there's mountains everywhere, so you can just kind of climb and you can kind of go wherever. But I think I'll just name a couple of my favorites. We did do the Tongariro crossing, which is about 2 hours away from where our university is or was. And the cool thing about it is our university was had the only hut on the mountain of Mount Ruapehu. Yeah, so they're not like, they have like huts for like people who are doing like multi-day hikes. And so they have them generally across like different mountains and stuff, but our university was the only allowed place to have one of those. So it was like, there's always students going up there. And so they would do like trips up to the hut. And so we got to stay with a bunch of students, a bunch of Kiwis. And then we all went as a big group. I think there was like 30 of us, 30 or like 40 of us, like cram packed into this like tiny hut. And then we like woke up at the butt crack of dawn and like got up there and we like hiked. And yeah, it was really fun. It was really, but it was really fun. And we did the hike and it was really tiring. It's the most tired I've ever been in my life.
I was going to say, I think the only trip that Jordan and I didn't do together was I went rock climbing in Kawakawa Bay, which is up by Topo. And it was about a 10K hike in at night. And I never realized how gorgeous the sky was. It's crystal clear. You can see the Milky Way. And I think that's what I miss the most about New Zealand. But it was nice. We rock climbed. There's a little lagoon that we could sit and bathe in all day. So I think that was a really nice trip. We got to see glowworms out in the actual forest, which was exciting. But
oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, New Zealand's fun because you can go pretty much anywhere. I mean, it's really easy to get around, which was something that I wasn't expecting. I mean, they have buses and the planes aren't that expensive. And I learned how to drive on the other side of the road just because like renting a car to get to some places was a lot easier than taking a bus. So sure. I learned how to drive on the other side of the road so that we could, go as many places as possible. Because from our university was in the center of the North Island. And so it was really easy for us to get from the center and then go out to the different coasts and go to like Wellington or like Taranaki and Napier.
Hawke's Bay.
Bay, yeah. Napier, yeah.
Oh,
so
cool.
It was nice.
That's awesome. So you ignored Silas's question. Did you hike the path to Mordor?
Yeah, we did. We did hike it. It was strenuous. I definitely suffered as much as Frodo suffered for sure.
I suffered more.
Rachel suffered more. They don't have goldfish in New Zealand, which was like, that's one of my favorite foods. So my mom had like sent me some goldfish and I was like trying to tell myself, you can get to the top. You can get to the top, like, and then like once you get to the top, you can have your goldfish. So that's what I did. I ate a whole bag of goldfish once I got up to the like peak of the mountain. So it was worth it. It was totally worth it.
That's
so for
cool.
people who don't know, she's talking about cheese crackers, not actual little fish.
Not actual goldfish. I'm not eating like actual fish.
Goldfish are my favorite.
It took me a while to figure that out.
You really like goldfish, and you're like, they don't have goldfish in New Zealand. I was like, that seems strange to me. I figured they'd have some breed of goldfish, some strain, some genus, some family.
You don't know anything about animals.
Science.
Leave that to Rachel.
Science.
Yeah.
That's really, really awesome. I have seen a couple of pictures, and did you also go to the movie set?
Yeah. Well, like which one?
How many of them did you go to?
Well, there's a lot of different places. I mean, we went to like Hobbiton, which is like the actual like movie set for the hobbits and stuff. But we went to like Rivendell. We went to like where they shot Isengard and some of the mountain scenes. We went to the marsh in the second Lord of the Rings movie with there's like the dead marsh. We went there too.
Oh wow.
So yeah. Oh yeah. We went everywhere. Lord of the Rings is my favorite. So
we also got to ride some of the horses that were used in the movie, which was really exciting.
Oh, nice.
So, I was freaking out. I freaked out a little bit.
You got to ride one of the bigger ones, Bob.
Yeah, his name was Bob, and he was in some of the war scenes with like, and he was in the third one. He was in the third one and like the last one, like Aragorn's horse and stuff. Like, yeah, we got to ride those horses, which was they were cool. They had like the little marks on their necks and everything. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Super cool. I do want to get to, I have heard you have some crazier stories. And so maybe we will cut to those a little bit later after a bit here. But I just want to ask both of you, for anyone who's thinking about studying abroad and considering New Zealand as an option, what did you love most about your travels in New Zealand and it as a study abroad location, and why would you recommend it? I'm guessing you would recommend it based on your enthusiasm so far. So.
Oh, yes. I think for me, I've never been out of the country until I went to New Zealand. So it was probably the safest place I could have gone. I never felt unsafe, even when it was just Jordan and I traveling, driving around, and just camping late at night at random places. Honestly, it was very safe, very easy to get around. Since English is one of their native languages, it just was simple. Everyone was really friendly. Everyone wanted to get to know you. They wanted to give you places to go around. So it was just very tourist friendly. And I loved the people there. The natives are sweethearts.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most understated things about New Zealand is just the people are incredibly hospitable. I mean, that was something that, they kind of told us that that Kiwis are incredibly generous people. And I didn't think coming from Minnesota where Minnesota nice is a thing. I was like, oh, there's no one nicer than Minnesotans, but no, Kiwis are by far the nicest people. We had an experience where we were staying at a hostel in Palmerston North because we weren't allowed in our housing yet. We thought we would be allowed in our housing a lot sooner, and they had messed up something, so we had to stay in a hostel for a couple days before we were allowed to move in. And we didn't have a car or any way to get to the university from the town. And since we were staying there, the lady who ran the hostel was like, oh, I'll drive you, like it was nothing. She's like, oh yeah, I will take you there. So she took us in and helped us with our luggage, and she brought us to university, which is amazing. She's just lovely. People would do that all the time, just offer things.
Jordan was actually sick while we were in the South Island.
I had bronchitis in the South Island while we were traveling, which was a bit of an adventure. Go ahead and tell the story.
And she was coughing so hard that some guy came up and knocked on our tent and was like, I know you don't know me, but I have a bunch of cough drops and medicine if she wants something to help her out. And we thanked him. We took it, and we went to return it to him the next day. Nowhere to be found.
Yeah, he just left us a big tin of medicine, and he's just I heard that you're suffering. Here's a box of medicine.
Oh.
That's not unusual for them. They're just lovely. I didn't have a bad experience with a Kiwi at all ever while I was there. They're lovely.
That's awesome. Super fun.
So one of the things I was going to ask is, we are out of college now, so we don't get to study abroad anymore. So for someone who's just visiting New Zealand, what tips would you have? Or, I guess, is there a must see destination besides what you've already mentioned? Kind of what would be the one big piece of advice if you only had 30 seconds, or, well, you can talk for longer than that, but, an elevator speech about someone who, is going to New Zealand, what would you tell them?
You want to go?
Okay, I'll go. I'll do the 30 second challenge of where to go to New Zealand. So if you're traveling,
we'll put a timer up on a clock here.
Okay, timer on a clock. Okay, if I was going to New Zealand and I wasn't studying abroad, the places that I would recommend to go see is I would go straight to the South Island, because that's the place where I think the most fun things are. That's where the most hikes are. So I would recommend the Kepler track. I didn't personally get to do that because that's a big regret that I have. So I would do the Kepler track. I would go to Milford Sound. That's one of the biggest ones in the world, but do it because you won't be disappointed. Abel Tasman. And
30 seconds.
Oh my gosh, it's more than 30 seconds. And then Abel Tasman, and then Hokitika. That's a tiny town that not a lot of people go to, and it's really fun.
Are those all hikes?
So Abel Tasman, it can be a 4 to 6 day hike. Kepler track is about a 3 to 5 day hike. Milford Sound, so she didn't mention this, but to get to Milford, you have to go through the mountain. So you literally drive through, and it's crazy. You drive through the dark for about 10-15 minutes. And Milford's about a kind of a day destination. She didn't mention Queenstown, which is where I would add. That is for adrenaline junkies.
Oh, cool.
So hang gliding, the world's giant.
The swing.
Swing.
Yeah.
Yes, the swing is there. And excuse us as we run around. Queenstown, I think, is really wonderful. And also, I would go to Stewart Island. It's a little island down off of the South Island, and they have a bunch of kiwis there. So, and it's very hard to see the kiwi birds in the wild, and that's one of the places that you can go. And
cool.
believe you might be able to stay overnight, but that's something that I didn't get to do, and I would have loved to do. Is go see that.
Sure.
That's cool. Well, and you're the animal ecology person.
I am. Jordan and I actually got to hear the kiwi birds calling in the middle of the night. We were sitting and camping, playing cards, and I just kind of turned to her. I'm like, "Do you hear that sound? It sounds like a little child screaming, basically." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm assuming it's a little kid." I'm like, "No, that's a kiwi bird." And like, we both looked at each other. We're like, "Can we go find it?" And we probably could have, but that was when she had the bronchitis and she was coughing. But it was really cool to just hear them.
Yeah.
Yes. Possibly. But no.
That's awesome. What other, just because you seem to be the expert here, what other animals are unique or native to New Zealand? Is there anything else to look for?
There is a reptile called the tuatara. It is, I don't want to call it a lizard because it's really not a lizard. It's its own genre. And basically it is the most ancestral reptile that we still have today.
Wow.
So it basically hasn't changed for hundreds of thousands of years. So that's what's really exciting about New Zealand is it does have the tuatara. They have mostly native birds. So there is the kakapo, which is a giant green parrot, and it walks very slowly and it kind of just like bounces around in the forest. It's very shy. And then they have the kia, which is an alpine parrot, and it loves shiny things and it loves to destroy things. So it has been known to destroy cars.
I've heard of that bird.
It destroyed our friend's tent.
Yeah, it ate our friend's tent and then got into his tent and started eating his sleeping bag.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so.
Wow.
So yes, they're very popular. You see a lot of videos of them, and I got to see, we saw a few of them when we were in the South Island, but otherwise it's mostly birds, insects, and reptiles that are down there.
Yeah, there's no dangerous animals at all.
Yeah.
Except for the one that will attack you if you're shiny.
Yeah, that sounds kind of dangerous.
If you're shiny. Yeah. So if you're wearing like a shiny tracksuit, then you're kind of out of luck.
A jogging target, if you will.
Yeah.
All right. The kakapo, though, sounds very much like the type of animal I would be, I think. Just kind of bobbing around, moving really slow. Sounds exactly
I could see that. That sounds if you have a spirit animal, Silas, that is what it would be.
Oh my gosh. I need to go find my spirit animal in New Zealand. And hike the path to Mordor, of course.
Yes.
Do you have any tips besides just places to go? Like anything unique or weird about traveling in New Zealand? That's just like
hitchhiking. Hitchhiking's acceptable. That's like a huge thing that we don't do in the United States. It's like nobody hitchhikes unless you're like a criminal, or like at least that's the impression.
Or in really big trouble.
Yeah, and so in New Zealand, it's like totally normal. There's always people, with their thumbs up. And our friends actually, we didn't personally do it because because I just foreign country, you don't really know, and I not really sure about the etiquette of hitchhiking quite as much as some of my other friends who've done it before, and so they would just do it, and they hitchhiked around the whole South Island. They didn't pay for any transportation at all. They just hitchhiked wherever they needed to go, which was interesting. That's something different. So if you're really adventurous, I would say try that. People also do couch surfing too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's another really common thing, is couch surfing and hitchhiking. So that's really cheap. If you really, really want to be really, really cheap, that's how you can get around. It's pretty common.
That's awesome.
I would say if you have the time and the money, going to a rugby game is really amazing. It's probably one of the bigger sports that are down there. And we got to see 2 rugby games, and I'm a huge fan of rugby. So to me, that was like super exciting. But I don't think when I was explaining rugby to Jordan and Lindsay, they're kind of like, I don't really understand what's going on. But even though you don't know what's going on, it's just very exciting because they tackle so gracefully. And since they have absolutely no protection, it's just fantastic to see these like amazing hits and then just, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's what I would.
Well, New Zealand has one of
That's
the
my
best rugby teams, no?
The All Blacks, yeah.
All Blacks.
Yes. Everybody loves the All Blacks.
They're a fun little team.
Yeah, they're pretty fun.
That's super cool. All right. So I want to dive into the more ridiculous stories that you have. If you're willing to share them,
Okay.
you don't have to share
Absolutely.
this podcast with your parents if you don't want, but
It's okay. My parents know. We told them some crazy things
Yeah.
years later. Like
Yeah, I was going to say, you wait till you get home and then you tell the stories.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's awesome.
so what do you got?
Ooh. No
Oh,
prompts.
No
No
prompts.
prompts.
No prompts. So one of the biggest things about New Zealand that I personally learned the hard way is that they have paths for a reason. That's like they kind of have this thing where it's like survival of the fittest. So like, it's like stick to the path, but in New Zealand there's like no signs. They're not like, don't do this, like this is dangerous if you like go past this point. They don't really have signs like that. So I was on the Tongariro crossing, or the path to Mordor, and they have this the path that you go up. So you kind of go up the mountain, and then Mount Doom's over here, and then they have like this path that you go up, and then there's a red crater, and so it's like a U shape. And you go down this side. That's the side everybody's supposed to go down, because then you go to like the blue pools and like the blue lake. But then if you go around this side, it's just like it just drops off. But to get the best pictures, because I'm a photographer, so I wanted to get the best pictures of the area, I went around the side that you're not supposed to go on. And It's made out of pumice rock. This whole thing's made out of pumice rock, all of it. And so it's really light. And so if you step on it, it breaks because you're too heavy. So I was climbing on that side, and I stepped on a big pumice rock, and it broke in half. And I started sliding down the mountain because it's a slope. So I just started sliding down the side of Mount Doom almost to my death, until my friend Philip pulled me by my back of my sweatshirt back up the top of the mountain.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I almost fell off of the red crater. So
That's
yeah.
horrifying.
And I saw none of this.
Yeah, she just like turns around, and then Phillips just got me like by my sweatshirt.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
No.
yeah, that's something I learned. It's just to stick to the path. Don't deviate unless you want to.
Did you get a good
almost fall
picture?
off a mountain. I have a picture of my hand like bleeding. I'm just like sitting there like, and then Phillips just sitting there, just standing there looking at me, and I'm just kind of in shock that I almost.
Did you get a
off the
good
mountain.
picture, other good pictures that you were hoping for, though?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're okay. Yeah, they were pretty good. They turned out good. Yeah.
We got some really nice photos of us in front of Mount Doom
Yeah.
because there's so many people who go across the path that we did get some nice photos of us in front of there. But yeah, I got a nice photo of her just kind of sitting there inspecting herself.
Just like, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Great.
Um,
That's crazy. That's one of my craziest stories. I know we definitely have
we have
too
a
many.
lot of crazy stories.
You
I
wanna
went
share one.
caving with a few of the guys from the Alpine Club that we were in, and they decided that we're going to go caving at night. And I was like, well, why not during the day? And they're like, oh, because it's already dark in the cave, so who really cares? I was like,
Yeah.
fine, that's fine. So we got to the second cave, and it branched off, and I followed a lot of the foreign students who just so happened to be French. They all had been climbing for a while, so I was following them into the cave, and there was a mini waterfall that was about 5 or 6 feet, and they're like pulling me up it, and we're going deeper into the cave, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I can't hop down the waterfall, and I'm just like, I'm just going to trust that these guys have my back the entire time. Since apparently I didn't realize we were possibly trespassing. I'm not sure.
Oh,
It's on
goodness.
someone's farmland. And they're like, oh, no, they know we come here all the time. It's fine. You're fine. And so as we were walking, there was like a dead sheep in the cave. And they're like, it's fine. Just keep walking. I'm like, okay. So we're just hiking through. I'm completely soaking wet at this point. And we ended up popping out of the cave on like the opposite side of the farm field. And we're like, okay, now we got to like hop a few fences and get back. And our friend Philip was like, where did you go? I'm like, we magically popped out of a hole. in the earth. No idea. And then I ended up rolling my ankle
Oh my
on
gosh.
the way back to the car. And it was the most upsetting thing. I was like, I survived the cave and
But not
couldn't
the
make it back to
not the field.
Yeah.
The grassy field or
No.
whatever it was.
Sad.
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really
And I think the story that you're referring to is
Yes, this is the one that I wanted.
Right. Our travel buddies, the car one.
Yes,
Okay.
that's
So-
this car travel buddy story.
So
For the
this
record.
is a big lesson. This is a big lesson to anybody who's, number one, studying abroad, or two, traveling with people that they might not know as well.
I would just like to preference that I told her this was a bad idea to begin with.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, she did tell me it was kind of a bad idea, but I mean, when you're trying to save money and people are kind of going to the same places when you're studying abroad, so it's like, I don't really know these people very well. We don't really know them, but this one kid had a car, and we were like, okay, well, we just want a cheaper way to go around the South Island, so we planned out a semi planned out a trip with these guys, and we decided that we were going to take a midnight ferry to the South Island from the North Island. So we had a car, and you could take a ferry, put the car on a boat, and then take it to the South Island. And so this guy booked a midnight away on this ferry, and we woke up and we drove a little bit, and then we decided to stop to take a nap because we were exhausted because it was at midnight, and we didn't realize that they had brought a lot of illicit drugs with them, because we didn't really know them, and they didn't tell us that that they were going to do that, because we wouldn't have gone with them.
Right.
And we woke up and they had done the drugs, and then they were trying to drive the car, to which there's only one guy, and he was the only one who knew how to drive the car, because he was the only one who practiced on the other side of the road. And so I was like, no, you're not going to drive the car, because we were in the mountains. So we were in the Fjordlands, which is, there's no rails. If anybody's kind of seen what the Fjordlands look like in New Zealand, there's no rails. And so very possible that
There's just a sheer cliff that just drop off. And but he wouldn't let Jordan drive. He was very mean, very aggressive.
Yeah.
And the other girl that we were with had to remind him to stay on the correct side of the road for a few hours.
And so we decided to leave them. Long story short, we were not safe with them, so we decided to leave them because they were not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So we found a bus, and then we kind of found our way back to the closest town that we could. And then we're like, oh, I guess we have to completely plan our whole trip over. We had we hardly had any money or resources because we were camping before we left them. So we didn't have anything booked. We didn't have literally anything. We started completely over, and that's why I had to learn how to drive on the other side of the road, is because we had to find a way to get around the island. Yeah.
But on the plus side, we had to drive to the coast on Kaikoura to get over to Christchurch, where we were going to go get the car. And when we stopped for lunch, we ran into a girl that we spent a lot of time with in one of the hostels. Oh, yeah. It was really nice to see her and catch up with her. So learning to drive was a fun experience. I feel like we learned to drive together. We were both each other's eyes, and that ended up being the best option. And we were supposed to meet them in Queenstown, and they left the car open, and they got their passports stolen.
And all their money stolen out of the car. So
oh my gosh.
We were good to leave them.
Yeah. So they never met back up with us until school.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
And then we avoided them.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Oh man.
Yep.
Yeah, that is definitely part of studying abroad, is having challenging situations that you have to overcome. Some of us, you two ladies, have harder situations to overcome than others. I'm trying to think. My hardest travel situation was probably, I had to sleep on a bus one night. And that's not hard at all. That's like,
was it an overnight bus?
Yeah.
Oh. So you signed up for that?
Yeah. So that was, well, it wasn't technically overnight, but it was, I don't know, a 12-hour bus ride or something like that. And so we got back very, very late. But, oh, no, the hardest one was the story that I've told probably
1,000 times.
1,000 times on the podcast, when I met my girlfriend in Germany, and she had us get off our stop about 30 minutes away from the town we were supposed to get to because she didn't want me to ask if we were at the right stop. So I was like, oh, let me just check with the bus driver. And she said, no, that'll embarrass me. And so we ended up going through a €3 bus ride. Ended up costing me €100 at the end to get to our destinations. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
That sounds like a mess.
that's a short version. But Kayla, on the other hand, has had lots of trying situations traveling. I'm thinking specifically of the ones in Africa. Yeah.
Tanzania.
That was.
Yeah.
But studying abroad is a lot of fun. I think all of us could agree on that. And before we close out, I do want a final either piece of advice or just a reason for why people should choose to study abroad in general. And if you want to specifically mention why they should choose New Zealand over other options, feel free to do that.
Or traveling to New Zealand.
Or traveling to New Zealand as well. So kind of closing thoughts from both of you about study abroad and or travel to New Zealand.
I don't think I've met a single person who has regretted ever going abroad. I've met more people regret that they never got to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can, I highly suggest going. One of the things I personally love about our schools, they have a variety of schools that you can go to based on how financially available it is. But go. You won't regret it. It's a life-changing experience, and I really think that you find yourself, even though you may not have been looking to find yourself. But New Zealand specifically, there's never something that you can't do. There's always fun things, and there's people who want to go with you. So whether you want to be in the mountains, in the beach, it's a little bit for everyone. So I'd highly suggest going. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's mind-blowing. It is genuinely the eighth wonder of the world, New Zealand.
It is. It's truly the most magnificent, beautiful place that I've ever been to. I've been to maybe like 20 countries, and like nothing in the world compares to New Zealand. I think it's what Rachel said is incredibly true. I think that I learned a lot about myself traveling there. I mean, I was doing things by the end that I didn't think I would ever be able to do in my life, or things that I didn't think I wanted to do in my life. And some things where I was just like, wow, I can't believe that I did that. That was the best day of my life. Probably that's something that I'm going to remember forever. And I credit New Zealand largely with just changing who I am as a person, just how I interact with people, how I interact with culture, and really for the first time being immersed in a natural environment, which is something different. And I don't think a lot of people really get that opportunity to be completely by yourself in nature. And that's the most amazing thing about it. Yeah.
New Zealand is what they say, the closest we will ever get to going to another planet. And I genuinely agree with that.
True. That's very true.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, ladies, for being on the show and for sharing your experiences and your adventures with everyone listening today. But that's our show. As always, we ask that you reach out with any questions you might have. We're always available via comments, social media, or email. We also have launched a Patreon community. If you follow the link below to our Patreon page, you can get exclusive access to our content and vacation planning assistance. Once again,
We're Kayla
and Silas, wishing you luck with your upcoming adventures.